Bing, 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 bing. Here we are. So, yeah, async voter meeting. Yeah, Paolo and Brent and I just kind of got in a session and went through the latest changes that Michael and Marion made to the system, which is also now deployed live. And the main change being that it should, in principle, now support multiple votes in channels, as well as storing a lot more data on the back end. I guess I'm tempted to see if that works. There was like I was hoping to I was like all these things I wanted to vote on for a Website 1 project. I've got one here, but so in principle, if I start, so we can see there's 3 votes up there on that one. In principle, if I now start, I can't remember what this was. What was this about? I can't remember what it was about. What was this about? This was about. Okay, yeah. This is old YouTube stream hanging around on daily events, like so. If I start that, and yeah, that one maintains, and presumably I can just quickly vote on this one, and yeah, I think it hasn't affected the one above. So it looks like that code is deployed and working. Big thanks to Michael and Marion for getting that done. We've also got Brent's set up with the whole thing running locally. And this, the main outcome of the discussion we were just having is, I guess, about direction going forward, which ended up being kind of writing up these notes here in the middle of the code base. We had been talking about how the direction that we might take going forward is to try and store things in this async voter API project that we've also got working. And Paolo, you had these ideas about chained promises that would be required to, ensure this existing system would operate consistently. But maybe that's you realize, I think, if we change the data structure, it actually becomes not an issue. Is that right?
It depends. It may, or based on how the database is structured, then the number of operations that need to happen may be more than one get, and we need to ensure they happen kind of atomically.
Right.
So if that's the case, then we need some system to ensure we don't start processing one action until we have finished processing all the preceding ones, I guess. And this could be done with a chain of promises. But
yeah, so
yes.
If we're implementing the client API that's going to talk to our remote system, then we can obviously add that as we need it or in the way that we need it. So yeah. Okay. So I guess that brings us to the board, if I can quickly find it. We've kind of actually addressed some of the key. Look, I've improved the. Am I not? I'm not logged in. I'm not logged in. I've kind of improved the image icon. There's still more work to do, but let's move it out of the way for the moment. Yeah, and let's update here. So the other thing that we were talking about before is about adding a help command to the existing system.
So Sam,
yeah,
now that I'm set up, I'd like to have a look at that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll totally. Yeah, let's.
I might not be in Waffle actually.
Okay. Yeah, we might have to add you to the relevant team. I can probably do that quite quickly. But yeah, yes. In all of our talk about the different ways of persisting it, I'd forgotten about these other things, which of course are important. We want to make the thing kind of usable and understandable on the side of the end users in a Slack instance. just think for the teams, and I can add. Let's see. Oh no, I've got you. I've got you in the Async Voters team.
Maybe it's VoterDB,
Okay,
which is my GitHub. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it won't. Oh, go on. There we go.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
Yep. Excellent.
Sam, even I would like to have an access of Waffle board.
Yes, and I think you're in the same group. So I think, not that I'm gonna, but I think if I do this, you're in there. So you should be able to do
okay.
we can do. But yeah, well, so that's I mean, the key things to sort in this meeting, if there are things, is really assignment of tasks and so on. So we voted on these last time. Brent, you wanted to grab that one. That's great. Nimit, were you interested to try and take a task on?
I was able to set up a local environment on my system.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to run the tests.
Oh, great.
Locally on my system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Are you at the stage that you would like to try and work on a feature, or you'd like to pair with someone on a feature, or you're still just like kind of observing to see how things are going?
I would like to pair with someone on a feature, and then I can later on, after getting in confidence, I can work independently.
Yeah. Well, since Brent's also got the, not just it set up in a system with a test, he's got it like a complete round trip with like an example, a test Slack instance. Would you be interested in working with Brent on the help command? I think, Nimit, you're muted.
I'm sorry, there is a network issue at my end.
No problem.
I missed what you said.
Yeah, I said, would you be interested in working with Brent on the help command? I guess Nimit's suffering from. I'll put it in the text and on the add help command. Anyway, but that sounds like you'll Brent. I mean, I know you like pairing, and you'll see if you can find a day when the internet weather is good, and you can catch up with Nimit or not. But
yeah, no, that's fine.
Good show. So I'm just looking through the backlog to see if there is, there are other things that need voting. There's lots of great stuff in there, like automatically updating the estimates. I don't know that we need to rush and vote. Is there anything in there that people would like to vote on? If not, then maybe what we can do quickly now is just turn these things into tickets, which are, I guess we've got the ticket here, which is sort of store all data in remote async voter API using the appropriate interface. And then I'm just going to would have lost the chat history there. And then the other elements of here, I mean, it's an interesting question, like for the client API, should that exist as a separate repo, or maybe even be, I guess, sensibly, what I see people doing, like the Stripe people, for example, they will have a separate repo, which is the, for the client code to talk to their API. Do you guys know what I mean?
I think this could either go into the AsyncVoter API repo or possibly be something. So it doesn't necessarily belong to the AsyncVoter Slack command repo.
Yeah.
It's basically more linked to the way the API is structured than AsyncVoter Slack command side.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. So I just would bring my camera up so you could see me nodding enthusiastically. Anyway, Yeah, so there's like doing the work on here, and then to that actually, I think, are we pulling the ticket? So like this, in principle, this can pull. Okay, so what I can do is I can add another repo in here. Oops. I want the Agile Ventures one. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. So what we can do is we can create a conjoined waffle board that has tickets from both repos in it. So we would just we just added a couple of tickets, which are the changes that we would need to make to the API, and then there's, so let me add here, and I can say we want, I'll put it on that thing, which is like create an API client that gives us nice JS function calls to access the API. And so maybe should we just have a quick vote on, like, I think these 3 stories here and get them in ready, and then unless there's anything else, we can quickly wrap the meeting up, and maybe we can all do we can split off into 2 pairs. But so let's start with, he said, trying to, why isn't it let me click that open? Reload. Waffle's being a bit strange, so why am I getting logged out so quickly? I guess GitHub's having issues. Okay, so try again. Okay, well, I guess if Waffle's playing up, I'm just going to go to, I've got the AsyncVoter API here. We've got the issues. Maybe like my attempt there to create a story has failed. It's got like issue 82. It says it's been, oh gosh, well. Oh, Waffle. Creates API code. Oh no, was it client? To work with API. Let's do that there. Okay. Let's have a vote on that. I'm going to go into the AsyncVoter and do /voter. So this is create client for API. So any questions about what this involves?
So is this a module that we could then load into the AVoter that will allow us to interface with the actual API?
Yes, that is my idea. Yeah, so this would include things like this, and we could load into other systems to talk to the API. So, yeah, well, I'm holding the whole team up. Let me vote on that. Okay, and I'll go and do the reveal. Okay, and we've got a consensus on medium.
Right.
Yeah, which is good. Now, of course, if the waffle is not working, then I can't. See, yeah, it's like I'm logged out again. I guess there must be some interaction between Waffle and GitHub. It's 83 there. Can I set it to 2? I can. Okay. And let's just close this one. I don't know. There was a strange thing. Okay. Well, and I guess we could go on and vote on how hard it is to add. I guess will it let me even open them? Maybe not. Let's get those voted on, because I think we kind of agreed that there are things that we need. So we've got 81. This is add user IDs to stories and votes. So this is then specifically for the AsyncVoter API, not for the Slack client.
Sorry, Sam.
Go on, Paul.
Just a question on voting, kind of not strategies, but how am I supposed to vote here? Like, I know nothing about it, so it seems I should probably vote no opinion. But it sounds like it should be easy. But how would you vote if you were me?
Well, I think what I might do is start asking questions. Certainly, both of those options are possible. I think when I feel unsure, I would be asking questions about, okay, what does the code currently look like? You know,
and this would be the right time to just, if people are unsure what to vote, we could ask. It's the right time to say, can we look into it a little bit just to see what it.
Totally, yeah. I mean, this is the this situation here where, I mean, as it happens, you three of us, we were sort of discussing this previously, and then we're all happen to agree on it. Is great, but really the voting is to promote discussion and to kind of flush out assumptions.
Okay, so let me just maybe take a step back and throw this on the table just for people to comment on. So this is like a central server. Presumably, many Slack teams can refer to the same server, or do you expect it to be a Slack team specific server? Is it a service provided centrally for people to record? Do we need like a login, some kind of way to allow different teams to hide their voting data from others, or is the server the unit kind of that belongs?
Yeah, I mean, I think sensibly in the first instance, the server is storing data for one Slack team. Like, maybe in the future we would want to support multiple Slack teams, but I think the objective at the moment is to have, you know, one server to, you know, store the Slack team. I mean, I guess we've got an issue about, you know, the interface being, you know, is it completely open? Can people come in and sort of destroy our data?
And how would a team configure the async command, async voter command, so that it saves its data on the appropriate, on the team-owned server?
I think in the first instance, we would hard code even an environment variable to say to the async voter Slack thing that we're running, this is the, you know, remote
URL,
like URL that you're talking to, and it's a kind of a one-off thing. I mean, if one imagines that the thing is lots of people are installing it in lots of different Slack instances and this, that, and the other, then yeah, they could be configuring it, and then we need to start doing authentication and this, that, and the other. But go on, Brent.
I was just thinking, because you made a good point there about it being open. If this is going to be hosted on Azure, like the other elements of the voter, then I guess in the first instance it doesn't need to be public, does it? So because the actual voter is public, it's sitting on the same environment, it can make the call to the API on a private network. So it wouldn't need to be publicly available.
In principle, although the way we're hosting it on Azure is via Doku, that creates separate Doku instances. So it would then just be a question of, can we configure the Doku instance so that it can only be talked to from the, and we probably can.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah. So I did mention the wrinkle of it being Doku rather than just Azure. But yeah, in principle, yes, it could be, and we would. That would seem sensible. Like, let's lock it down, you know, and not have to worry about authentication to any abstract client until we've got it, so storing everything that we want.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So having said that, which was all relevant, the only parameters are the Slack channel and the user ID that are we don't need to.
So we want and so actually, the ticket that we're just voting on now is specifically for user IDs. Now, I've got two tickets. I mean, maybe there should be one ticket, but one of them was for channel or source. I mean, it seems like we could have an open text string that would just be the source. Maybe we make it channel to start with. I mean, I think we do have the situation that, for example, Brent's set up his test instance. I've got a few other things, probably rather than anyway. That's channels, but the particular one we're on here is how complex would it be to add a field to store some user information for stories and votes? And I was just bringing up here. So the thing we created uses the mongoose thing and defines a schema like so. And so in principle, I think it would be as simple as, you know, adjusting the schema, adjusting the tests, and then just making sure that in those places, like in the controllers, so like the story controller has got create story, it would need to pass through the user information. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
If that makes sense. Oh, go on.
That was already in request body name. That's exactly what the request already has, that, right? Name.
Yeah. Like it's. I mean, this is using like Express and everything, so that it's got like effectively we've already got the whole flow of, you know, picking the data off the param from the incoming HTTP request and sticking it in the database. So it's kind of like there shouldn't be too many surprises, because it should just be adding another piece of data that we want to store, right?
Okay, username. Like
user ID, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there any validation happening?
There isn't, and I don't know that we're in a situation where we need. I mean, we've got this thing that ultimately we will want it to support being able to return, like, what's the most, like, take the person's most recent vote as their final vote.
Yeah.
But I think we don't. I don't think we need to use a model per se. It's the equivalent of the URL. It's just going to be a unique ID for that user, and it's up to the client to coordinate those unique IDs. So if we're ready to vote, then go ahead and jump in the channel and make your vote. Which, of course, if you're still unsure, can be no opinion, or well, those are the options: 1 to 3, or no opinion. So Paolo's voted, so we'll reveal there. And yep, we have consensus. Great. Woo. So that's this one, which now I can set to 1 there. And so yeah, and so this was the final one that I created here, and it's now letting Waffles working again, which was add kind of source. And for this one, I mean, I think I've just convinced myself that we probably should store where it's coming from, as well as like a channel ID. So maybe it means adding. It's difficult to know, isn't it? I mean, in principle, this thing is supposed to be separate from. It doesn't care that the voting is coming from Slack, right? The voting could come from some other source. But so I guess it's like adding a source field to indicate this, and probably the complete URL to the like the Slack channel is a perfectly valid source. You know what I mean?
Sam, can I point out that if you allow votes or voting sessions to be created outside of Slack, then the user ID is more confusing, because so far the user ID is a Slack user ID. I guess that should remain the same, like the way you identify users. If you allow external sources, then can one just send an email, and what's the user ID then?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think if we did expand like that, there would have to also be some mechanism for, you know,
a user database and
right, and like some kind of LDAP or whatever coherent system for authentication. I guess I more bring up that variation in saying that. I mean, we could, if we were thinking about the API system as being okay, it's only ever going to receive anything from Slack, then we could have 2 separate fields, one to say this is the Slack instance that it came from, and this is the channel ID, right? And I think it feels to me like probably a URL, like, because all of the Slack channels have like a kind of a unique like URL. So I'm just sort of thinking probably simpler to go for, you know, like this. What is it usually? This is a unique URL that specifies the Slack thing, and so I'm just kind of arguing for creating a single field rather than two in this case.
That's a Slack channel.
Yes.
URL.
Yeah. And so
my comment was this is kind of related to how you store user identifiers as well. And
if we were going to receive it from like lots of other things, and I think that's true, but I think that's, you know, I guess the I mean, like the options are here to store a, you know, we can have a single field that stores the source, or we could break it up into multiple fields that tell us different things about the source and other things. I guess the question is, do we need anything more than a single text field?
I guess the question is when you've pulled that data into the async module, how, you know, if we was to use the suggestion there, can that be mapped to tell so that Slack itself knows which votes belong to the channel that you're currently in? Because I think at the moment it's the hash, whatever the channel name is being stored, isn't it?
Right. And that would be this. I mean, so, you know, if we are thinking about making the system work really, you know, smoothly for the async voter client, we would say, oh, well, let's store the channel ID as a kind of a unique ID reference. But I'm just saying, let's store it and agree to make it, you know, a URL, and then, you know, in order for it to like pass it back, like, you know, it will, like I said, in order to do the reveal, it's got to say, okay, what were, you know, it's got to summarize, it's got to grab from the API, what's the summary of the data that was for this vote in this channel, and that'll be available, you know, via this unique aspect of this URL.
Yeah, okay, understood, thanks.
So yeah, I totally take your point, pal, about the users and so on. I think it probably doesn't affect the scope of this story.
No, yeah, you can call it add a source here, but everything will work until the source is a Slack command, Slack channel, and then but call it source.
Yeah, we can call it source, and we can agree to use it in this way for the time being.
You could even have like a e.g. Slack channel : URL, for example, and that could be the default. And then if you have other sources, you could kind of qualify them with some string.
That's right, and in fact, the kind of, I mean, it's a bit like, what was I going to say, Firebase. I mean, we did a whole thing in the Premium Mob the other day in Firebase, but you're sort of creating key value pairs that the client can use and impose its structure on how they work. It's going to actually, Firebase backend, but we don't really need the Firebase functionality for all this. So yeah, there we go. Cool. So if are we ready to vote on this one?
Yep.
Which should be fair. It's the same. It's doing the same thing as the last one. So presumably we wouldn't have too many surprises on this. And Nimit. Yep, there we go. All right. Interesting. So Paolo and Nimit, you've gone with medium, and myself and Brent have gone with simple. Nimit, why were you thinking of medium for this one?
I think it's medium because it's not straightforward how we are going to store the source, basically. Like, what format are we going to use? It's not so straightforward, and it might become complicated as we scale it. As a lot of teams try to use it, we might want to think about the source that it's coming from.
Interesting. And Brent, what if I volunteer you as spokesperson for the Simple Camp? What was making you think that it was simple?
Based on your explanation, it's no different in terms of implementation than the one we've just voted on, where we did vote simple. So I understand what Nimit is saying, is that there's probably some decisions to be made of how we structure the data, but actually making the code changes to store the data is probably simple.
I think your explanation mirrors mine. Brent, Paolo?
Yeah, no, I'm just slightly unsure whether there could be something else that is related to channels that we haven't considered. But I can be quite easily convinced to change my vote to simple if you're. But I understand adding a parameter with the channel ID and storing it is very much like adding the user ID, which we all agreed was simple. So if there is no other kind of repercussion on just having a channel concept in this API, then simple it is.
Yeah. I totally take Nimit your point. I think you're right. There's all sorts of complexity based upon how one chooses what the formatting will be. But if we are restricting this vote to be about how complex is it to add a single field, and the discussions about the formatting and so on, I mean, that's kind of that will be part of a different coding activity. So would you be willing, Nimit, to sort of concede simple just for this one?
Yeah, if we are just adding a story, we are just adding a source. I mean, that's simple. Yep.
Yeah. Good show. All right, great. Well, I think we've certainly got great work, everyone. We've got these ones, the voted ones on. We can put those over into the ready column. So yeah. I guess so then we come down to who works on what, and Brent already volunteered for this one, and Nimit, I think you're interested to collaborate with Brent, so we'll add your name there. We've got you two on that one, and then I guess I don't know how much time you've got left, Paolo, but we could take a stab on working on one of these other ones. I guess it's sort of, which way in do we go? Do we start modifying the the API thing to have the fields ready, or do we start by writing the client code? Any preference?
So the answer to the first question is I've got to go. My wife will kill me if I don't go, but I would like to come back and meet up with you again in a little bit if I make it on time and if you're still up for it.
Sure.
So what I can do is I can ping you when I'm back.
Sure.
But I have to go, and actually I should really run away now, and I'll be as quick as possible and I'll ping you on Slack when I'm back. So okay, bye everyone.
See you soon. Thanks, Paolo.
Okay, ciao, Sam. Ciao, bye everybody.
Bye, Paolo.
Bye, Paolo.
All right. Okay. Well, no, I think that's fine. Because we don't need to make a story. I think Paolo and I will work out how we come in on that. Yeah, I think that's a successful meeting. Thanks, Brendan. Nimit, great to see you again. Anything else that you need help with, or anything at all before we wrap up for today?
No, thank you. I'm good.
All right.
I guess I need to update. While updating previously, my network lost, so I can just give a quick update. So I was able to set up the test. I was able to run test locally, and I'm currently on the part where one create Slack teams and then runs ng rocks to basically put your local host on ng rocks. So that's the part where I'm what I'm right now currently doing.
Right, and you're just working. Are you stuck on that part, or you're just working through it?
Actually, I got stuck on that part at NG Rocks because what I'm using is basically I'm using Windows 10 and I'm using basically Linux terminal on that. So there's like Linux on Windows 10. So I'm
Sure.
using that, and so to install NG Rocks, it's I mean, it's a little complicated, or getting
Sure.
complicated for me in this environment.
Right.
Maybe I'll just need to read through what other people have done it, and maybe it should be straightforward for me as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I mean, Brent has just got that working on his, but Brent, you're on a Mac, are you?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, so we'll limit if you're happy continuing with that. You know, carry on. Do reach out to either myself or Brent, or just in the channel if there are things that you're stuck with. And but maybe I'll
Sure.
leave you two to work out when you're going to set up a pairing session. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to you, Nimit, in Slack, and we can agree the best times, etc.
That's great, Brent.
Great stuff.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. See you again soon.
Cheers.
Bye
Thanks.
for now.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right. Bye.